succeeded in convincing the Irish king to let him preach the new religion throughout the land. St. Patrick became the keystone in the bridge by which men passed from paganism to Christianity. Using many of the old customs and ceremonies of the Druids, he interwove them into the Christian beliefs. Before long, the hills and valleys of Ireland were adorned with countless churches and monastic institutions. As much a myth as man, St. Patrick soon became a legend. Among the many miracles attributed to him is the story of how he banished the serpents from the island. Whether truth or fiction, the fact remains, there are no snakes in the Ireland of today. For nearly 400 years after St. Patrick began his conversion of the pagan Celts, monasteries and churches flourished. From this prosperous period, we find the first written history of the Irish as a nation. It also produced one of the most magnificent handwritten books ever found. But like so many vestiges of this long-departed people, it too raises unanswered questions. Considered by many historians to be the most beautiful book in the world, the Book of Kells is truly an ancient work of unequaled religious splendor, encompassing the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Taking untold years of labor to complete, this 8th century volume requires the aid of a magnifying glass to fully appreciate the intricacies of its design. No less than 158 separately scrolled lines within a single inch of space go together to create the decorated letters which begin many of the pages. Just how such an exacting task was accomplished before the invention of the magnifying glass remains an unanswered mystery. There is, however, an indication that the ancestors of this country did possibly possess the knowledge of optics required to execute such a work as we find in the Book of Kells. This is the world's first giant telescope. Built under the direction of the 3rd Earl of Ross, this crudely fashioned device nevertheless was the most sophisticated optical instrument of its time and led to the discovery of the first spiral nebula. It remained the largest telescope in the world until after 1900. Like a giant arm pointing to the heavens, this antique relic reaches out to the world beyond planet Earth. Concern for what lies beyond the physical life man shares with other creatures on this planet has always been important to the Irish people. A strong belief in a spiritual life after earthly death is perhaps one reason there is such a proliferation of churches in Ireland. Many of these houses of worship have unusual, haunting histories. St. Mickens in Dublin is one such place. It was here that Frederick Handel came to rehearse before giving the first performance of his famous Messiah in April of 1742. Founded in 1096 by the Danes, St. Mickens has long been the resting place for those who fought for the freedom of Ireland. If stones could talk, these would have much to say about Irish independence. Deep underground, beneath the main sanctuary of the church is a mystery that even today remains unsolved. The remains of these ancient citizens of Erin are surprisingly well preserved. Just how this was accomplished, scientists cannot explain, although some have theorized that the high content of tannic acid in the soil may have slowed down the natural decay of the body. When the church was being renovated in 1686, the Crusader was discovered. So called because of the unusual manner in which the body was placed in the coffin, with the legs broken and crossed. But others maintain that he was a rebel who died protecting Mother Ireland. Nearby, the coffins of two other Irish rebels, the Shears brothers, who were executed for their part in the rebellion of 1798. For 2,000 years, Ireland was the scene of numerous invasions by outside armies. In 1172, an incursion by England succeeded in bringing the Irish under the rule of a foreign flag. This occupation was to last for nearly 800 years. Stripped of their basic civil rights, the Irish continued to resist. But many of those unfortunate enough to be captured were brought to out-of-the-way fortresses such as this for questioning. Though built in 1180 by the Geraldines, little is known about the castle until the time of Charles Townley, who took possession in the mid-17th century. Townley held a somewhat obscure position within the English parliamentary government which ruled Ireland at the time. Here in the dungeons, he extracted confessions from the rebel prisoners. The blood-stained, rusted wrist irons used for this purpose remain as ghastly reminders of the torturous events which took place here. But Townley is remembered for an even more heinous crime. In an apparent attempt at friendship, he invited 200 local townspeople to celebrate Mass at the castle. When everyone was kneeling to receive the sacraments, Townley's soldiers swept through the room and slaughtered the entire congregation. But the souls of that massacre at last gained their revenge when Townley's only descendant heir, Roderick, was struck down by leprosy. Through the years, the men of Erin persisted and waged guerrilla warfare against their British rulers. Fighting alongside their womenfolk, the men of Ireland finally shook off the shackles of foreign dominance. In 1922, the treaty was signed, and Ireland was declared a free republic. But partition was a condition of the treaty, leaving 6 counties in the north under the rule of England. 1 year before the treaty, this quiet country lane was the scene of a brief but fatal skirmish. Returning from a routine patrol, 3 Irish rebels were ambushed. Throughout the countryside, many such encounters are marked by permanent memorials, and the spiritual presence of those who died here is often felt and respected by those who pass this way today as free men.